98. I'm Dan McNeil, chapter historian of the Atlanta chapter of ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. I'm here with Tom Barrow, president of the Tom Barrow Company. Tom has been in Atlanta, I think, since the late 40s or early 50s, and I'd like to talk to him about his experience in our business during that time. Tom, where were you born? Were you born in Atlanta, or were you?
No, I'm born in South Georgia in Pelham, and grew up in Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Went all through grammar school and high school there. Came to Atlanta in 1944 in the Navy V-12 program.
When were you born? What year?
1926.
26, okay.
So I came here and spent roughly a year at Emory in the Navy V-12 training program. And then went to Duke for about a year, still in the program. When the Navy sent me home, I came back to Georgia Tech and finished there and graduated from Tech.
What year was that?
From 1948.
48, okay. Mechanical engineering?
Mechanical engineering. You were there and graduated in 49.
49, yes, right. That's so true, yeah. I started in 42, came back after a while. But what happened when you graduated from Tech? Did you know what you wanted to do?
Well, I had been interested, I guess I had gotten interested a little bit in refrigeration when I was probably in junior high, something like that, and had read a book on air conditioning, and I thought that refrigeration and air conditioning had a future. It was something that we didn't have much of then. But the idea of being able to lower the temperature by an artificial means seemed to me to be sort of a pretty slick idea. Somebody had also told me that there was great money to be made in sales. And so I had an idea that if I got into selling somehow in the refrigeration and air conditioning industry, that this would be a good thing to do.
Did they have any courses at Tech? Did you take anything that was...
I had two of them, taught by Professor Holland. One was on refrigeration and one was heating and air conditioning. More courses than they have over there now. They've only got one now.
They haven't gone very far.
That's right.
Go right ahead, Tom.
Well, just more about my career.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
so you said you
graduated and went through the interview program that, as you know, they have at Tech for graduating seniors, and took a job with a manufacturer's representative here that was selling pretty much this kind of equipment. He sold pretty much the same things that we sell now, fans, registers and grills. And
so there were people in the business
Sure.
at that time, in 48, when you got
48.
in.
Mm-hmm. There had been a good many people that had gone into the business right after World War II. But some of the firms that were in business had dated back prior to World War II. Now, they were selling heating equipment primarily.
Okay.
And
what were some of them?
fans and ventilation.
Who were they? Do you remember their names? Or
Well, E.W. Klein Company.
Ed Klein, yeah.
And, well, it was Ed's father started business. And then Ed, when he got out of service, came back and went with it. They had sold equipment, but they also did design. There weren't a whole lot of consulting engineers, so when they designed the vacuum heating system, as they called it, they many times turned out to do the design because there was no one else qualified to do it.
Those are steam jobs, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It was Johnny Dodd Company and Spotswood Park, two that come to my mind. Those had all dated prior to World War II, I think. Right after World War II, there were a host of others. There was thermal engineering, which previous to that had been Gerard Sutherland C. And there was Gene Clary, and then there were several people that operated sort of like manufacturers' representatives, except they were, I'm thinking of U.S. Radiator Company and American Standard, and some of these people had sort of factory distribution points here. Factory offices, but they operated pretty much like a little independent representative.
Okay.
One of the biggest differences is that not too many of these people carried much stock, and many of them did something else. They did service, or they did controls, or they did startup, or they did some design build, some turnkey work. And it was a little different and a little more flexible, I guess,
That was to sell their equipment, to get their equipment to the marketplace, they had to do these things.
And a lot of times they had to do more than just sell it, as you
Yeah,
say.
sure, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what did you, when you were interviewing at Tech, were you interviewing with companies outside of Atlanta, or did you decide you really wanted, were you an Atlanta boy, you wanted to stay here?
No, I was not an Atlanta boy. I was getting ready to marry an Atlanta girl,
Oh, okay.
and that was kind of prompted me to want to stay here.
Okay.
I looked at some other companies and looked in some other industries, but the one that I finally took was in working for a manufacturer's representative. The fellow's name was J. Harvey Seat, S-E-A-T. And after about a year, he sold out to a fellow named Felix Comigier. Now, Felix Comigier had been selling a lot of equipment to electrical wholesalers. He was a manufacturer's representative that had been in the electrical industry, but he had gotten into the heating and air conditioning business through a fan line that he had and through buying Harvey's firm when Harvey wanted to go into the car and contract business.
Oh,
I can't see that the business has changed a whole lot.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm sure that people would love to hear some eye-opening that would make your jaw drop off and say, wow, that's really a change. I can't see really too much change in the distribution part of our industry. More and more people, like in my business, have become people that stock a little equipment to meet the quickly turnaround jobs and the designs and all that a lot of times can't wait on factory shipments. Certainly, the whole construction industry has compressed the time in which they have to build a building.
Sure.
And that has been pretty much of a steady thing for some years. And I think more people in my business as distributors or manufacturers representatives or manufacturers agents, depending on what you want to call them, have gotten into the buy and resell business, where instead of the factory shipping it direct to the customer and billing it to the customer and paying us a commission, more and more we have gotten into the factory ships it, bills to us, and we in turn bill the customer.
Do you think this is a good thing, to keep the credit approval at a local level, knowing who you're dealing with and all? Is that good or
Well,
bad?
I'm not sure it's a value judgment of good or bad. It works well for us because we really don't much like some credit department off in some other part of the world trying to deal with our local customers. We know them, we know what their problems are, we know which ones can be depended on to do what they say they're going to do and which can't. And we think we can control it better than they can. We think that the factories ought to compensate us for carrying the accounts, and most of them do. Most of them give you a little bit better price if you carry the account.
When did you, this was in 50 then that you left and started your own firm?
55.
Oh, 55, so you stayed with,
Comigier. I was there about 7 years.
oh, you were okay. What kind of product line did y'all have? Fans, grills and registers? and
Fans,
compressors?
drills and racers, cooling towers, the same kind of thing that we took.
All good. It hasn't changed in the product mix and everything, it's
Not
just
much.
about the same. And the
Not
companies
much
that,
for me.
the companies that sell direct are still selling direct and haven't gone. Have you seen much change in fact, what we call a factory office versus sales rep office? Is it different companies going the different routes?
Yeah, I think that's changed a little bit, but it's changed both ways. I think a lot of factories that had direct offices have closed them and gone to the rep firms, and then some of them gone back to factory offices, and it's gone the other way too. They have put in factory offices and decided that didn't work and have gone back to reps. It's gone back and forth both ways, I think.
So this is just a marketing decision at the company level that does these things, not so much local that you can control that yourself.
I don't think it had much to do with the local situation. The one situation that may have changed is that, of course, the market has grown so much. Offices are bigger. I mean, the typical manufacturer's representative office, when I came into it, might have, 2 or 3 people and a girl. And I think most of them are much larger than that now. They have more lines and they try to cover the territory more thoroughly because there's more business out there, naturally.
You think this is good for the industry, that it's gone this way?
Yeah, I think so. I think that an organization that has a little more size to it can render some better service. One of the things that prompted us to want to grow was I saw Jack O'Shea was a very successful manufacturer's representative here in town many years ago when he represented Buffalo Fords. And he had 2 or 3 other lines. He kept his operation very small. He tried one person working with him and decided that he really didn't like that. So he had gone back to just him and the secretary. He made very comfortable living out of it and had done so. It was well thought of. Good engineer. And he died of a heart attack in Florida on a sailing trip.
Well, when was he in business now?
This was been about 19...
Right after World War II, or?
No, this was about 1954 was when he died.
Oh, okay. So this was
56,
late,
probably 56.
late 40s and early 50s is when you're talking about. Okay.
But when he died, there was nothing left. I mean, he had no organization. He had nothing to sell. His widow got, practically nothing out of anything that was there. Some of the factories were even a little bit hesitant about paying her commissions that he had earned. He couldn't take a vacation. He couldn't be sick. He was the business. And it seemed to me that you could be far more secure and have a far better operation if you built a little organization. Enough people there so that there was somebody there to look after things when you went to lunch and when you were sick and when you wanted to take a vacation and maybe when you went out to make sales calls.
That's right. That's so true.
So we started adding people and trying to see the business grow, and that's sort of what happened to us. And I think most of our competitors have done the same thing.
Do you mind saying what type of organization you have now? You have 3 or 4 different offices, I believe.
We've got 9 offices and about 140 people, I guess.
That's a very nice organization.
Yeah,
For a one-man organization. Well, I assume that you think our heating and air conditioning business is a good business because you have a daughter and a son that are in your business now, right?
I think it is a good business, and what we have tried to do is to grow as we saw opportunities to grow, and not try to reach any size, or we had no particular thing that we tried to do with the growth. Just when the opportunities were there, we tried to be available to take the opportunity. I think it's the construction industry is a very exciting industry to me because I'm sure others have talked about the same thing, but it's great to be part of an industry that's growing, that's dynamic, that's moving, and it lives and works on problem solving. That's the fun part of the business.
I think construction business is the best business to be in, no question.
People come to you with a problem, and you and the other people involved sit down and find a solution, and you go ahead and build the building. You finish it, and turn the keys over to the owner, and in the meantime, you're hoping they're working on something else. There's a dynamics to it that you don't have in lots of business. As I frequently like to tell people, a lot of stress comes with this. But I don't see how you could have a dynamic, rapidly moving, growing business without that stress.
So true. Yeah. What do you think is, you said the marketing of our product hasn't changed that much since we've been in it, since, let's say, the late 40s and 50s. What about the contractual arrangements and the consulting engineers and the relations between contractors? What has that changed over the years? Has there been that much change? Is more design, build things come along? How has this developed? Has there been as much change, more change in that than it has really been in the marketing of the product? Is that what we're saying?
I think so. I think that the change that to me is the most dramatic and the ones that people like you and I have been in it a while deplore most is that we've gotten a legalism in it that a lot of times takes the fun out. So people are concerned about what they put in writing may be used against them, and they're concerned that what they agree to might come back to bite them. And I oftentimes use the illustration of you're gonna have problems in the construction business, of course. And one of the fun things always was to be able to sit down at a table with the contractor and the engineer and architect and say, well, here's the problem. What we're gonna do, and everybody sits around and trade ideas back and forth, and you finally come up with a workable solution and say, hey, this will do it. Let's go ahead with it. Everybody leaves feeling great. And now they come to the same meeting with twice as many people. And everybody sits back and they're real quiet. And they want to be very careful what they say, and then pretty soon it gets to be saying, well, everybody starts pointing at everybody else, and everybody's afraid to work on the problem, afraid that somebody will pin it on them. It takes fun out of it.
Yeah, very good
It
point.
really does. And,
So that's a negative thing that's happening
That's
in our
negative,
business,
yeah.
Very-
and that's not entirely, I think design and build helps remove some of that, because it takes some of the legalism out of it. And it makes more, hey, what can we do to work together to get this building built?
That's a very interesting point. So your feeling is that the legalities of the thing has been the basic cause of some of our problems, and maybe the changes that are being made to overcome that.
And we're no different from the rest of
Yeah,
society.
yeah, very interesting point. I think that's
There's
very
many
true.
things that you don't do or afraid to do. You see some fellow broken by the side of the road, you're afraid to stop and help him, you're wondering what it might mean to you legally.
Yeah, that's right.
We just have to try to overcome some of those things.
Yeah, point I was trying to make, so really the design build concept of this concept is taking hold because of this legal problem
I
that
think
we're
that's part
saying.
of it.
So that might be some of the things that's gonna happen in the future, huh?
I think that's part of it. I think design and build is growing too because of the inability of people to estimate jobs correctly. And owners are turning to design build so that they can know more surely what a job's going to cost.
The concept that came up about, I remember one of the contractors here in Atlanta said that he got a job because he said that next February the 18th, I can turn off a pair of shoes off of this production line. And is trying to get the time restraint
Sure.
in this thing, part of the thing that you were saying, that your business is being directed of stocking stuff so you can do these type of things.
But that's the other.
The time constraints now are very critical, I guess, of whether you want to build it to house people or when the market's going to be there for extra house or office space and so forth.
And I'm not sure what's caused that, but owners are much more anxious to get built in a hurry than they were when you and I came.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But that has resulted in more design and build because, of course, obviously you can start the building before you finish the design.
That's right, so true. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say, talk to these people about what the business and how good it is, and how good it's been to the Barrow organization and all? I know that you're still married to the young lady that you married, how many years now, 47?
50.
Is it 50 now?
50 this month,
Very
50
good.
April the 10th.
What are y'all going to do, Tom? You going to Ireland or going,
No, we're going to the Danube.
are you?
We're going week after next or week after that, about 2-3 weeks. We'll go out on a cruise, and our kids gave us a 50th anniversary party week before last, and that was a lot of fun.
Very good.
I don't know anything else that I would add, except, I guess, that the thing that it always underlines most business, whether it's construction or anything else, is that people that build good relationships and treat people fairly and honestly don't always get rich, and they don't always get the order, but most people begin to recognize this. And one of the great things about selling in construction market is you're selling to repeat customers. And they don't care too much whether your shoes are signed or your tie is straight. They're more interested that you serve them well and keep them out of trouble. And this won't get you all the business, but there'll be a lot of people that will give you an edge one way or another if they have found that they could put confidence in you, if you knew what you were doing, and if you were there to serve them. And that's true with most of the organizations that have been successful, maybe all of them.
Tom, you bring that, in my experience around the country and all, it appears to me that the people in Atlanta appear to be nicer people, that they appreciate what you're saying and all. That what I hear from other reps in other parts of the country, they don't have the same relationship. And I have a feeling that this is part of the reason is because of people like yourself having an organization that can be depended on, that this is permeated into other parts of the business. Do you, I hate to say, do you feel that way? I kind of feel this is
sense the same thing.
Do you?
I think it's far less of a dog eat dog, everybody.
It's bad here, but it's not near as bad.
And I think it's a little worse than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of the reasons it's worse is so many of these outsiders came here, people from Mississippi and Florida.
That's right. That's so true, Tom. Well, Tom, this has been a very nice talk with you, and we appreciate very much you doing this. I'm sure that this will mean something to the Atlanta community in the future. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you. I enjoyed doing it. Thank you, Peggy.